Welcome to Paveway and the background to the Performance Development Indicator, a leadership and management tool that measures the cultural drivers of organizational performance, enabling leaders and managers to rapidly identify where individual and collective performance can be addressed and developed. The indicator is a survey instrument consisting of 24 questions spread across 3 filters or prisms through which we look at organizational performance, namely the effect of stress on collective performance, employees' emotional response to the workplace, and dynamic balance within the organization. Looking in more detail at each filter, we start by asking a number of questions around employees' perceptions of the effect of stress in their working lives. According to the Connexa High Performance Institute Work Trends Report for 2011-2012 into Global Workplace Stress, written by Susan DeMello, stress in the workplace has steadily been rising due to the global economic downturn. The United Kingdom, United States and Brazil all exceeded the global average increase, with Britain's population being the most stressed at 35% of the working population, while in the US, the number of women suffering from stress exceeded their male counterparts. Of the various professions and vocations, healthcare, government services and the banking sector are the most affected, running at around 35% of their populations, while manufacturing, particularly high-tech manufacturing, is the least affected sector. Science also has begun to provide us with clear linkage between work-related stress and serious illness. In 2010 alone, 3 studies, one in London, one at Yale, and one in Finland, published findings linking work-related stress to heart disease, cancer, and secondary stress in employees' children respectively, ramping up the potential for further litigation. Financial and healthcare costs resulting from absenteeism and presenteeism run into billions. There is, in fact, no single, unified, universally accepted definition of human stress against which scientific research can be tested. This has given rise to a debate as to its very existence. We take no sides, but recognize that we have to live with a paradox in that stress may not exist as a scientifically provable condition, but at the same time is recognized in statute and case law. We therefore base the stress effect filter on the 6 main areas of working life that the UK Health and Safety Executive deems are most likely to cause stress in the workplace. They are the degree to which employees can or cannot cope with the demands of the job, the degree to which employees have control over how they do their jobs, the degree of support employees receive from others, the degree to which employees are subjected to unacceptable behaviours in the workplace, the degree to which employees understand their roles, and the degree to which the organisation engages with employees during times of change. The degree to which we are experiencing stress in our jobs is related to our emotional response to the workplace. Following on from the stress effect filter, the second filter looks at emotional response based on 2 well-founded scientific models. The performance bell curve, or Yerkes-Dodson law, is an empirical relationship between arousal and performance, originally developed by psychologists Robert Yerkes and John Dodson in 1908. The law dictates that performance increases with physiological or mental excitement, but only up to a point. When levels of arousal become too high, performance decreases. The process is often illustrated graphically as a bell curve. Yerkes and Dodson noted, however, that the drop-off in performance related to complex and difficult tasks requiring cognition, memory, decision-making and multitasking. Simple tasks remain largely unaffected by the increase in arousal. In this respect, the work of Professor Robert Plutchik is also important in our understanding of how emotional response affects performance from a health perspective. His model of 8 core emotions as vital to our evolution and survival is free of judgment. Anger and fear are useful in determining whether we stand and fight danger or flee from it. Survival of the species is the driver beneath all 8 core emotions. They exist in 4 pairs of polar opposites: anger and fear, sadness and joy, trust and disgust, and anticipation and surprise. The more complex social emotions are binary and tertiary cocktails of the core 8. As far as the emotional response filter is concerned, we are primarily interested in 3 aspects: the type of emotion being experienced, namely positive or negative, its intensity and its duration. Intensity is an indicator of short-term or immediate performance set against the Yerkes-Dodson bell curve, while time, particularly where negative emotions are experienced over a prolonged period, is an indicator of potential for ill health in an employee. The underlying science to this is linked to the release and activity of various hormones associated with being in a heightened fight or flight state. It's the prolonged presence of these glucocorticoids in our system that cause the various illnesses commonly ascribed to stress. The third filter through which a performance development indicator looks at organizational performance is dynamic balance across 4 key subsystems of the organization. The preeminent Carl Jung once famously said, "There is no lunacy people under the domination of an archetype will not fall prey to." He may just as well have added, "There is no lunacy organizations under the domination of an archetype will not fall prey to." What Jung was hinting at is germane to understanding how high-performing people, teams and organizations function. The dynamic balance filter draws heavily on the empirical work of Dr. Carol S. Pearson in the US, whose work on archetypal activity in people and organizations formed the basis of 3 of her best-known books on this subject. Her metrics for measuring archetypal activity have been academically and scientifically validated and practically proven in the performance consulting, branding, and corporate arenas. At the overall strategic level, the organization is subdivided into 4 operational subsystems grouped into 2 pairs that exist in polar tension. The model reflects at the macro group or organizational level what happens within all humans at the micro level. Each subsystem or quadrant fulfills certain individual and collective needs. The human subsystem satisfies our need to belong to a family, group or collective, while a learning subsystem satisfies our need to grow as an individual. So the need for interdependence and independence exist in dynamic tension. Similarly, we derive our sense of stability and security from the material subsystem, yet we get our results in life through the production subsystem by taking calculated risks. Too much emphasis at either end of these 2 axes can result in a downside or shadow side of that subsystem. For example, too much emphasis on the human subsystem, people and belonging, can create a culture of conformity and boredom to the detriment of learning, growth and independence. Each subsystem, therefore, has its shadow potential. This is important in understanding not only the function of each subsystem, but also their pairings. The material and human subsystems create the foundation for success, but they don't create success itself. For that, we have to cross the threshold to achieve whatever we have set out to accomplish. Achievement, therefore, is a balance between the production and the learning and growth subsystems. Long-term growth and production are intimately linked. High-performing individuals and organizations, therefore, seek to have their needs met in each subsystem and also maintain dynamic balance across all 4 subsystems and along both polar axes. The degree to which an organization is balanced or otherwise in this respect is usually hidden to the organization itself. The performance development indicator identifies balances and imbalances across these subsystems by asking employees the degree to which their expectations are met in each, how much change, if any, they'd like to see in each, and the degree of attention that they perceive the organization pays to each subsystem. If each quadrant or subsystem were to be thought of as having its own unique character and style, what Jung called an archetype, then we seek to ensure that no one aspect of the organization dominates at the expense of the others. With the background in mind, we can now take a look at the survey. The Performance Development Indicator is hosted online. Each participant receives an email with a unique backlink to the survey. Where organizations don't have emails for some employees, the system generates a unique session key for that individual. The survey consists of 7 parts and takes approximately 10 minutes to complete if all the notes are read. Part 1 of the survey gathers data on the participant. The survey can either be conducted anonymously, in which case no data is captured in Part 1A, or it can be used for coaching, appraisals, performance development and 360 interviews. Part 1B is where the participant identifies which metadata options apply. Metadata is simply the term we use to denote the bespoke filters that the organization can choose to look at itself through. Typically, these would ask people where they work, what grade or rank they hold, what age group they fall into, how many years they've worked for the organization, etc. The organization chooses these filters and a survey report is constructed around them. The system provides for up to 7 metadata filters and unlimited options under each filter. Parts 2A and 2B are the stress effect filter. A total of 8 questions are asked, 2 specific to the reporting of stress, and 1 across each of the 6 areas that the Health and Safety Executive deems causes stress in the workplace. Part 3 of the survey relates to the emotional response filter. 4 questions gather information about the emotional response, exposure over time, and intensity with respect to both the predominant experience and the less dominant one. Parts 4 to 6 ask the participant to grade how their expectations are met in each of the organisation subsystems, how much change they'd like to see in each, and the degree to which the participant feels the organisation pays attention to each subsystem. Finally, the last part of the survey allows participants to record their own observations and qualify their answers where qualification is needed. This part is not obligatory. Once a survey window is closed, the data is crunched and the report is ready for downloading and analysis.